and we're excited to share in this lesson where we're going to be talking about I Will Be Devoted. Again, we're coming from Craig Groeschel's latest book, Think Ahead. You can pick up that book wherever you purchase books at. It is an excellent read. If you want to continue your journey in leadership, go ahead and pick that book up and follow along with us as we continue to study this great material. Without further ado, let's go ahead and enjoy the episode. What's up and what's happening, TPE fam? We're back with another episode of the TPE Book Club that is hosted by myself and Giovanna. We're glad to be continuing our study of Craig Groeschel's latest book, Think Ahead. We are doing the book club for the purpose of cultivating an environment of learning through books written by leaders who seek to add value, and Craig Groeschel is no stranger to adding value. Just as a reminder to you guys, before we jump into the book study, that do not forget to sign up for this month's Lead Better. Toward the end of the month, Giovanna and myself are going to be hosting a Lead Better that's going to be focused on systems and processes. It's going to be a Q&A style experience where you guys can get the opportunity to submit questions to us ahead of time for us to be able to answer them in real time and to be able to provide you guys some insight on what we think about systems and processes and why we will believe they are important. If this is something that sounds like you're interested in, please head over to www.tpenow.com. That is tpenow.com. We look forward to seeing you 100% free. So as we jump back into our book study, this is going to be lesson number 3, and we're going to be talking about I Will Be Devoted. Remember, we have 7 key thoughts that this book rides on. I will be ready. I will be devoted. I will be faithful. I will be an influencer. I will be generous. I will be consistent, and I will be a finisher. And so we definitely have already covered I will be ready. Now we're moving on into I will be devoted. And as always, Giovanna has done a wonderful job of putting together the notes and the content and the commentary for this conversation. And I'm going to go ahead and let her get us started with what she thinks about this subject. Giovanna.
So I think the first thing when thinking about I will be devoted is, what does it mean to be fully devoted? I think as well, I'll speak for myself on this one, but I do a pretty good job of being devoted, for a good 3 months or 6 months, especially when we're talking like the physical aspect. Like I'll be working out for 6 months straight and I'm like, I'm devoted. And then distractions come along. And I start to say, okay, well, I can not work out 4 days. I'm just going to work out 3 days. And then 3 turns into 2 and 2 turns into 1. And 1 turns into none. And then I've got this, 1 month, 3 month period where I'm not working out. So I think the first question you have to ask yourself is, what does being fully devoted mean? And what does that look like? And I think one thing, so I'm shouting out Craig Groeschel's Think Ahead workbook. I think this has really helped me with this book. I read a lot of books, by the way, guys. I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of books. But one thing that this workbook does is it really helps you think deeper about the book. It helps you think deeper about the chapters. So in the first part of this part 2, I will be devoted. One thing that he says is, you may be devoted to something, but if it's not anchoring every area of your life, then you're not fully devoted to it. And so I really kind of took that to heart. And he's talking about it in a spiritual perspective. But I think you can think about this in every area of your life. If it's not something that you think about consistently, that you consistently do, if it's not something, I would even say, that kind of shapes your worldview. That was a word in college when I went to a Presbyterian college, and a lot of what they taught us, history, English, science, was how is our worldview shaped by those things? And I think that's one thing I think about is whatever we're devoted to shapes our worldview, and worldview is how you see the world. And so when we can use the physical aspect just to make it easy, but if I'm fully devoted to being physically fit, that means I'm eating healthy. That means that I'm working out. That means that I'm planning my meals. So there's a lot that goes into what being fully devoted looks like. What do you think about that, Alex?
No, I definitely would have to agree. There was a few things that kind of stuck out to me when I was looking at the workbook and looking at some of the material, and it's like you're absolutely right. You have to learn how to have the things that you say that you're devoted to be a part of every piece of your life. Like, and I think one thing that kind of bubbled to the top for me, I guess in my own reflection of it, will be is devotion is a precursor to discipline, right? I think you talked about, like, your devotion to working out, kind of that is the catalyst for us to be more disciplined in the areas that we deem important. And I think that this portion of the book really kind of calls you to the carpet to think about, well, what are your priorities? And I know that's going to be some of the things that we're going to be talking about in our next session. But, like, what are your priorities, and what are the things that you call important, and how devoted are you to those things? And I think the thing is like, I personally feel like sometimes we get discouraged when we're not 100% in it. Like you said, you want to work out every single day, and then that may not be the most realistic thing to do, and you end up burning out because you're beating yourself up because you want to achieve this goal, or you want to make this happen, or and again, you're absolutely right that this portion of the book is written from is really rooted in a spiritual from a spiritual standpoint. But I think sometimes, though, the value in that is understanding that, hey, we're not going to be perfect, like, we're not going to be 100% perfect, but the thing about it is just we continue to try each and every day. And I think for me, like, you from a practical standpoint, you have to have those things that you want to be devoted to written down somewhere, to where they can remind you of what's important. So when you do slip and fall, or when you have those moments where you don't exactly align with where you want to go, you have something to remind you to keep you on the path.
Yeah, and you can really think about too, like, your values, like what are your values set? You can write that down. These are, or you can even figure that out. There's a lot of different values exercises. If you just even Google search finding what I value, you can find some really good tools on finding your value set. And does your world actually show what you value? Are you devoted to the right things if that's what you truly value? So in this first section, though, one of the things he really talks about is being fully devoted means that your worldview is shaped by that. But what are the distractions in the world that cause you to not be fully devoted? And I loved this chapter, by the way, in the book. Like, I love this chapter because I'm a numbers person. I'm kind of a statistics. Like, my husband actually is a real numbers person. Like, he's kind of Rain Man-ish. He can give you all the numbers. He can actually, if you tell him your phone number, he can spout it back out to you. I can't do that. But I just like to hear the statistics of what, like, actually is going on. And he talks about how many hours in a week we actually have to make things happen. So I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of that info again, if you listen to the book first, but here's that info again. He says we all have 168 hours in a week. Okay. So 168 total hours in a week. A third of those hours are spent sleeping. A third of those hours are spent working or going to school, or a combination of both. So, like, if you're in college and you work 30 hours a week, like a third of those are spent doing that. And then you have a third that are left over. So it's about 56 hours that you have left over to do whatever it is that you want, which is, if you look at those hours, you'll be able to tell what you value. You'll be able to tell what you're devoted to. But he said in those 56 hours, after eating, preparing to eat, you really only have 38 hours left. So literally we are given 38 hours to decide like, what am I going to be fully devoted to? On average, I'm not making this up. This is Craig Groeschel speaking this in his book. Okay. On average, people spend 17 hours on social media a week. So of those 38 hours that you have left, you have 17 of those are spent on social media, which, if you look at that over your lifespan, that's 7 years of your life is spent on social media. The average person picks up their phone 2,617 times per day. And you can't go more than 10 minutes without picking up your phone. What do you think about those statistics, Alex?
No, I believe it, and personally, I had to kind of do something about that just in terms of my productivity. Like you know, if I believe that we're going to be able to do the things that we want to do, and I'm going to be able to walk out the vision and the mission that I have for my life and my family's life, I had to put some parameters around that. And thankfully, where technology is today, the devices have some things built into them if you take advantage of them that will help you monitor and put some boundaries in place when it comes to that. I transparently I put a screen time alert on my phone for an hour of social media time a day. Now, that's number one. It's kind of difficult to wrap your brain around that you're putting a 1 hour limit on yourself. That sounds like a long time when you just like actually going to do the task, because no one really thinks about how much time they spend on social media. And I was surprised at how fast I was burning through that hour in the beginning. Like in the beginning, like I was like it could be around 10 o'clock, or it could be 3 o'clock, and that hour is about done. And I was like, man, I hadn't even done anything, like in the morning time I get up, or if you leave your phone sitting out, you'll be surprised how fast you can get that hour. But now I don't even hit that hour at all, because I've been trying to take myself off of it. But but in order for me to do that, I had to kind of start recognizing, hey, I had to assess my reality, right? I had to assess how was I spending that time, and then make some adjustments. But no, that I can believe that and how I see certain people. I said, look at your screen time and tell me how much time you spent on social media over the last week. And people are surprised to see that they're spending that much time on socials.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's crazy. It's crazy. And I love that Craig Groeschel, even in his book, he says social media is not a bad thing. Like, I'm not sitting here telling you guys, hey, get off social media, it's terrible. No. There's a lot of really good things around social media. That, I mean, I wouldn't say sitting scrolling 10 hours a day on social media is a good idea, but it's a good way to promote your business. It's a good way to look at how things are marketed. It's a good thing to get reviews about certain things. But I think in the end, we have to evaluate how we're spending those 38 hours. Like, what occupies your time for those 38 hours? And I'm bringing up the phone because I would say, I don't know the statistics on this, but I would say that a lot of people struggle with this. And I would say for myself, like the reason, like if you look at my phone and you look at the screen time is pretty high. My screen time is more high on like emails, text messages, calling, productivity type apps, I guess. But what that tells you is I work a lot. Like I value productivity and but is that 100% a good thing? No, because a third I said is spent working or going to school. I would say more of my life, like it's not a third. It's probably like maybe more like closer to a half of that time. And that's not necessarily that good either. And so I think you've got to think about how you spend the rest of those 38 hours. Now, I'm going to name some other areas that I feel like I'm bringing up the phone, right? But I think television, music, games, friends, hobbies, those are all different things that can be distracting from being fully devoted to whatever it is that you feel like is important in your life. And I kind of have a saying now, and Alex, I didn't put this in my notes, but like I don't allow people to say I don't have time to do that. I make them say, like in our business, they're like, yeah, I just didn't have time. I'm like, no, you didn't make time. You didn't make time to do it because you make time for the things that are important to you. Like that is the 100% truth. We all have time, but you weren't devoted to whatever that was, and therefore you didn't make time to do it. And so there have been times where I even catch myself like, man, I just didn't have time. And I'm like, no, Giovanna, you didn't make time. So if it's truly important to you, if you truly want to be devoted to it, if you truly want to see progress in, one of those 4 areas we talked about in that first podcast, the spiritual, the physical, the mental, the emotional. If I truly want to see growth in those things, I can't say, well, I just didn't have time to go do X, Y, or Z. I have to be honest with myself and say, I didn't make time to do that. So if it's truly important to me and I'm going to be truly devoted to it, then I have to make time to do whatever it is that's important in my life. And so I think that's key in anything that we do is we have to make time for it. We have to make time for the things that are important and really, really do that values exercise I'm talking about. And I can even have Alex, we can put one on Leader Square. So if y'all want to get on Leader Square, I can put a values exercise that I've had a couple of my clients do, because we get to this and we talk about, I'm like, what do you value? What are you devoted to? And they're like, I'm not really sure. What's your why? And I don't really know. So we do this values exercise. It's really important. And then that helps them understand. And when you do a time journal, which is the exercise that I'm going to ask you guys to do for this next week, when you do that time journal, it should point to the values exercise of, oh man, I value family. That's one of my values. Oh, okay. Well, that's why a lot of those 38 hours that I have left over are spent with my kids or spent with my husband or spent with my wife, because that's something I value. I value relationships. I value friendships. I value physical fitness. I value, there's all these different values. There's lists of hundreds of them, but you have to decide what's most important to you, but you've got to be fully devoted to it. And the time that you spend should match that. And if it doesn't, then that's a bigger question of, are you fully devoted to that? And what is distracting you from being fully devoted?
Well, no, I think you're hitting the nail right on the head, Giovanna, per usual, like always.
Whatever.
No, because I think it's true. I think that there's a lot of things that can distract us, and I think it's funny that you said about understanding what your why is and knowing what that is. Neff had made a piece of content very recently that talked about leaders getting burnt out trying to help motivate other people to get to their finish line, even when they don't know what their finish line is. And then we always talk about leadership as a journey that's never ending, but there's checkpoints along the way. There's benchmarks along the way that we're all striving to make, to get towards. But for you as an individual, do you know what those checkpoints are, or do you know the direction that you want to go in? I think, just to wrap up our conversation, I know you have your activity, but I just want to challenge everybody to think about what are those things that are important to you, or is your life headed in that direction? You don't have to get super technical, at least from what I'm saying. Giovanna's activity may be a little bit more technical than what I'm describing, but just in your reflection time in the morning or as you're getting ready to go to sleep, think about, did I do anything today that will get that aligns with what I think my why is, And so, Giovanna, I'll kick it to you, and then we'll close it out.
Yeah. So my weekly challenge for you is, I have an exercise. It's called a time journal. If you've ever heard of somebody doing a food journal, it's you write down everything that you ate that day. That's one of those where if you don't want to write it down, maybe you shouldn't eat it. That's a good way to keep yourself accountable. This is the similar exercise where you write down how you spend your time for an entire week. I did this exercise maybe a year and a half ago with my director team. And some of them, because we were talking about time, and they're like, I don't have enough time. I don't. And I actually made them also record their screen time for an entire week. And then we tried to, bring it down by an hour. And full transparency, I had some people that were at 9 hours of screen time a day. And I'm like, y'all, you're only awake for 13. What? Or you're only awake for, how many ever hours it is, 15 hours, 9 of those you're on your phone. I'm like, that's why you don't have time to do things. But my challenge is do a journal. Those 38 extra hours. You don't have to do the ones where you're at school, where you're sleeping. Some people do it. They'll write down, 24 hours a day from, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. I was asleep. But, this time to this time I was at work. You don't have to do that. But those extra hours, those extra 38 hours, where are you spending your time? And if you're still man, I don't know what my values are, do the values exercise so you can see, does my time journal match what I say that I value? Am I fully devoted to those things? So I think that would be a good exercise for us to do for this next week, before we hit lesson 4, because lesson 4 is really great. And I'm going to also put this in there. So he talks about watching the movie King Richard. It's a movie it's a documentary around Serena and Venus Williams and their family. And he uses that documentary as an example. And it's not fully a documentary because it's a movie. There's some things in there that aren't 100% true, but I think it's I'm going to use that as an analogy for some things. I've watched King Richard. I'm going to use it as an analogy the same way he uses it in the workbook, because I think it's really good for us to really see what we're devoted to. So that's a little tidbit of information. That's what's coming up.
Well, that was awesome. King Richard, I can't wait for that discussion. That was a pretty good movie. But again, guys, if you hadn't gotten your copy of Think Ahead, you can get this from Amazon, Target, Walmart, wherever you get your books. Craig Groeschel is the author. We thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the TPE Book Club. Again, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Share this with somebody who you feel like could work on being devoted. It'll be really cool if you and your other peers or friends get in on this content together, because we believe that we're talking about things that are going to shift the needle and just move things along for you in your life, and it's going to help you become a better leader. Connect with us at tpenow.com, and don't forget to sign up for the free Lead Better this month. We're going to be talking about systems and processes, and Giovanna and I are excited about that. And so until next time, TPE family, peace. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate you guys participating and engaging with us. If you want more information on how you can get connected with us and how you can continue your journey of leadership development, head over to tpenow.com, join Leader Square, and let's grow together.